Hello, it's me. So last video, I was standing around all like cold, shivering. Today, I am in dappled sunlight, shirtless. It's the first day that's been warm enough to be outside shirtless comfortably. I've done it before. I usually do that in the winter. It's weird. Sometimes I need to stand outside shirtless, just kind of to feel life, I guess. But today it's warm, so I'm not bouncing around like, oh, I'm cold. And as you saw from the opening video, I'm in my favorite spot again because it's nice enough to be here. Yeah, I'm pretty happy. Happy Bernbrecht to you. Or is it Bernbrennen? Can't remember. Bernbrecht, I think. Today, in a couple of hours, there is a ancient pagan festival about to happen here. Can I say that again? There was an ancient pagan festival about to happen here. That pleases me, as you can imagine. So, the festival, it happens kind of everywhere here, where they pile up, they do like a big staff, and they pile up old pine branches and straw and everything else there, and then they burn it. They also actually put a cross there too. So yeah, it's a burning cross, but the name means castle burning, but there's no castle being burned. And as I said, it's an ancient festival, so Catholics, of course, kind of adopted it a little bit. Here it was starting to kind of go away a little bit, and then the government kind of, well, and all of the cultural forces were like, no, we're not letting this go away, so it's still here. And it celebrates the beginning of spring. So, of course, in the Celtic calendar, it's February 1st. Here it's a little bit later, February 21st. And it's okay, so its history is kind of weird. It existed with the Treveri and the other peoples who were here before. And then when the Romans came in, they moved it. They moved it slightly to March 1st, which for them was the beginning of spring. And then when the Catholics came through, they kept it around because it was kind of a impossible to get rid of sort of thing. So it's a lot like the Beltane fires that you see in Scotland, etc. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited. That's happening in I think it's about an hour and a half. Yeah, about an hour and a half is when it starts, right around sundown. I passed by one of the places where they're doing it. It's all kind of set up. Officially, no one can actually be there for it, or an audience cannot be there for it because of COVID. But it's on a hillside, so it's going to be pretty easy for me to see it from anywhere. So I'm going to go in a little bit after that, and I'll try to take footage of it and either add that to this video or to the next one. Yeah, so I'm happy. I'm shirtless out in my favorite little Druid place with my favorite little waterfall and my favorite little stream that eventually runs down to the Moselle and then eventually runs down to the Rhine. When I was in Switzerland last weekend, I got to see other rivers that run into the Rhine. Every river there where I was goes to the Rhine. They're all connected into this big river. One day I'll go to the Rhine again and go visit it and maybe take a film for you folks there. I hope you're well. I hope spring is kind of starting to come where you are. I heard in the United States it was pretty snowy and lots of people lost electricity. I do have something to say about that. In America, of course, the big place where people were losing it was Texas. Texas deregulated their energy production and energy distribution. So if you were in Texas during this point, it just kind of fell apart. And a lot of people were kind of laughing at Texans or laughing at Texas and like, oh, that's what you get. And the thing is, so frost is caused by the polar vortex moving, slipping out of the place where it usually is. There's two levels of the polar vortex. There's one that's kind of low, but then there's this upper one that's very high that develops during the winter. It's all of this cold air, and it usually kind of circles around. But occasionally, when the pressure kind of gets changed up, is that a tractor? Oh, that's a motorcycle. I don't know. Anyway, so it kind of slips, and it's been slipping because there's been warmer air up there, and then it slips down, and then it covers the United States, North America, and people get very, very, very cold, and the energy systems can't keep up. Now, there's this idea that, well, okay, that was the fault of the government, and yeah, that kind of was. But the same sort of climate crises, of course, are happening kind of everywhere, so eventually even the best government's not going to be able to keep up. I'm pretty lucky right now to be in Europe, where there's a lot of pretty decent governments. They're not bad. I mean, they're still governments, but they're a lot kinder, a lot more concerned about their people. Part of that is, of course, that so many revolutions have happened here that they have to be. In the United States, there haven't been many revolutions, just that one, and that was to found the United States. So the government is not afraid of the people in the United States. They are here, though. But eventually, even these really good governments with really great technocrats, really great policies, and really great tax structures, and really great social services will not be able to keep up with these problems too. We know this is happening, and one of the things that's been very frustrating about, I guess, mainstream left or whatever, whenever we talk about things about like the Green New Deal or whatever, there's some good stuff in it, but almost everything ever involved in that stuff really is just adding a kind of capacity to electricity, changing sort of where we're getting it, but not reducing how much we need, which keeps the system fragile. And of course, growth, desire, hunger for resources keeps increasing. And so actually, this is, if you're American, you probably remember this. This happened in Europe too. But I remember when everybody had to change their light bulbs. This is like early 2000s, I think, when there was this energy efficiency measure that was passed by the government that was, if we all start using halogen and LED and fluorescent lights, then we'll save the planet. So we're getting rid of incandescent light bulbs. Now, obviously incandescent light bulbs use lots of electricity. They never actually had to. And also they break all the time, so you have to replace them. They didn't have to do that either. I don't know if you know this or not, but in Florida, in Thomas Edison's, one of his residences, one of his houses, you can see the light bulb, one of the light bulbs that he invented that is still going. It's been going for over 100 years now. Still the same light bulb. Didn't have to break. Anyway, so the government said, okay, well, we're going to replace these. It's going to be all like more efficient and all of that. The thing is, it wasn't to save the planet. Now, it was sold that way. But at that time, you maybe remember some of the crazy stuff that happened in California with all of these rolling brownouts and blackouts because of the instability of electricity distribution from, what was it, Enron? It was Enron, I can't remember. Anyway, there was actually a crisis happening because this is at the time that everybody's starting to go digital. And while, our individual portable, what do you call it? En français it's portable. Smartphones, sorry. While our individual smartphones and computers might not use a whole lot of electricity, all of the infrastructure to run the internet uses massive amounts of energy. Fun side effect, there was a little, there is a little article about how all of the Bitcoin mining and the distribution of Bitcoin uses as much electricity as Argentina does every year. That's just for a cryptocurrency that, only a very small portion of people use. You maybe know this as well. In the United States, for instance, Google owns their own power manufacturing plants. They own their own power manufacturing plants in several places. I believe it's mostly in Oregon, Idaho, California, the Pacific Northwest. And I think they're hydroelectric and solar. But they own that because they require massive amounts of electricity, and they wanted to have their own electricity source in case the governments ever were not able to supply them with enough electricity. One of those data centers uses insane amounts of energy. And while, plug in your smartphone and you're like, oh, well, okay, that was fast and it wasn't using a lot of electricity, it did not change my electric bill all of that much. All of that energy usage is being concentrated in the central brains, as it were, in order to make our smartphones actually connect to each other, to make our computers connect, to make all of this stuff connect, and to hold all of that information. So where was I going? Oh, okay. So at the time that all of this is starting to happen, you then see a government push to change from incandescent to LED, fluorescent, and other energy efficient lighting. Now, that was a good move, actually, although I do miss incandescent light bulbs. I miss the warmth that they give, and they'll actually warm up the house if you're cold. So will tea lights, by the way. But when they switched to those, the major effect, the major reason, the major cause for them needing to do this was to free up electric capacity, to free up energy capacity, because all of these other new sources were starting to suck up electricity. They were starting to have problems, so they realized, okay, we make this consumer change. At the same time that consumers are now buying, things that do use a lot of electricity, for instance, high definition televisions. But we make this one consumer change. We sell it as an environmentally nice thing, a green thing. This happened during Bush. He wasn't very green, but anyway. So you do that, suddenly there's a lot more free electricity up for the data center. So they were then able to stave off a crisis for a little bit, while they then put up more power plants in order to get to the capacity they need. So all of these millions of consumers stopped using electricity for incandescent light bulbs and started using them for really energy efficient ones. But the total consumption of electricity did not go down, it actually increased. It increased because there was all of this freed up energy, it's not free, now available for industry. So anyway, when you start looking at these crises, especially around electricity and energy consumption, and you start realizing, whenever they do change something, they make it nice, like, it's wind power, it's solar or whatever, they're only ever adding capacity. They're never replacing anything. You've probably read, all of the stuff on Germany for years and years. They're like, they're getting rid of coal. They're totally getting rid of coal. Like, they have no nuclear. They're getting rid of coal or whatever. No, they're buying coal from Poland, coal electricity from Poland, and they are buying nuclear energy from France. So they're still using it. They're just not producing it themselves. So they're able to say, we've gone green, but they have not gone green. They've just displaced what they're using. They've displaced the production onto other places that have extra production at the moment. And then so we have all these climate crises. The polar vortex is of course one of them. And then if you think in the summers, all of the canicles, the English kind of cool heat wave. You get crazy heat waves. We had them last year, a year before that. Europe had them especially bad. Excuse me. So when you have all of these coming, then people need more electricity. They need more electricity to cool everything down, and then you'll have blackouts again, or brownouts, or what have you. So colder, crazy, chaotic weather during the winter, hotter, crazy, chaotic weather during the summer, and an electricity grid that cannot currently really keep up. And the best that they can really do is add capacity, which is just going to be sucked up by industry again. Again, go back to that Bitcoin thing. You know, Bitcoin is not the only cryptocurrency, but there are plenty of things industries could do with extra electricity production. So they're not going to fix it, and they won't really be able to. We will keep seeing these difficult crises all of the time. It'll be awful. I saw a friend of someone I know was burning their bookshelf in their house. They had no wood and they were cold. I think this was in the Northwest. So all of this is happening. Fuck it. Sorry. It's spring. I'm happy. We're gonna go burn an old pagan cross. Not the American cross burning, just to make clear. I'm gonna go see a ritual that's existed for over 2,000 years before Christ. I like when things are before Christ. That's awesome, especially when they're kind of continuous, and continuous in the same place, like here. That excites the hell out of me. I hope you're well. I hope you're warm if you're in one of those places where everything got really super cold. I'm sorry I never have answers for you on these things. I can never tell you, oh, well, if we just did this. But actually, there's, you know, if we just stopped living this way, then these things would not be so difficult. But of course, that's the hardest thing of all. And no government is ever going to suggest that we, you know, deindustrialize, that we stop buying things. COVID particularly is causing a massive crisis, in governments. I don't know, in America, you know, the whole thing, oh, Trump did this or Trump didn't do this or whatever, but if you look at it, like, every government in the world has struggled with the idea of closing down businesses, because if they close down businesses, they get no tax revenue. And if they get no tax revenue, then they start to collapse. So the same thing has been happening everywhere. Good governments, bad governments, whatever. You know, this has been a massive crisis, and that's going to keep going as well. So where was I going with this? I don't remember. I don't care. I'm happy. It's spring. Old pagan things. That's what it was. You know, we could live differently. You know, some already are. Maybe not enough of us. But if we figure that out, we might survive. And if we don't, then we won't. And that's okay too. Anyway, I love you. I'm gonna go catch some more of this sun before it sets. Thanks again, as always, for all of your support. And I will talk to you all again soon.